Part 6. The Women Disciples. In the history of Buddhism, the emergence of female disciples was not only a spiritual turning point, but also a revolutionary milestone for ancient Indian society. At a time when women were considered inferior, confined within the family sphere, the idea of a woman renouncing worldly life, seeking liberation, and attaining enlightenment seemed almost impossible. Yet, the very first women broke through that wall of prejudice, opening a path for countless generations of women to follow the light of liberation. They were not just students, but living witnesses to the power of compassion, wisdom, and perseverance. 6.1 Mahapajapati Gautami, the first woman who asked to ordain. Mahapajapati Gautami, the Buddha's aunt and foster mother, was one of the most remarkable figures in the entire history of Buddhism. She was not only bound to the Buddha by blood, but she was also the first woman in recorded history to stand before the male-dominated spiritual tradition and ask for the right to renounce worldly life. It was full of tenderness, devotion, and sacrifice. She watched Siddhartha grow, from a curious child within the palace walls to a young man troubled by the suffering of life, to don the robe of renunciation, and to follow the path of liberation, just as the men do. That request struck like thunder against the sky of Indian tradition. In those times, the idea of a woman renouncing the world was unheard of. Women were considered bound to family and domestic roles. They were born, married, and died within the household. With calm clarity, he affirmed, Ananda, women are indeed fully capable of attaining arahantship, just as men are. There is no difference in the capacity for enlightenment. That statement opened the way. At last, the Buddha consented to Mahapajapati Gautami's request. However, he laid down 8 special conditions, known as the 8 Garudamas, rules that emphasized respect from the order of nuns toward the monks. Though some later would view them as unequal, at that time they were groundbreaking, laying the foundation for the world's first community of Buddhist nuns. Mahapajapati Gautami became the very first ordained bhikkhuni, leading the nascent community and guiding thousands of women on the renunciant path. Her life became a living testament to the strength of faith, the hunger for liberation, and the courage to overcome all prejudice. In time, she herself attained arahantship, fulfilling the Buddha's words that women were just as capable of awakening. She passed away in peace, a reminder that in the realm of enlightenment there is no gender, no boundary that can hinder liberation. From the blood-stained footsteps of those first women, a new doorway opened, the doorway to freedom, awakening, and equality under the radiant light of the Dharma. 6.2 Khema, from a proud beauty to the foremost in wisdom. In the history of Buddhism, Khema is remembered as one of the most remarkable female disciples of the Buddha, who attained the state of an arahant and was honored as the foremost in wisdom among the nuns. Yet, her story is a vivid testimony to the impermanence of physical appearance and to the transformative power of the Dharma when a soul is awakened. Khema was born into a noble family of the Magadha kingdom, which at that time was ruled by King Bimbisara. From a young age, she was renowned for her extraordinary beauty, her skin smooth as jade, her posture graceful, her eyes sparkling like stars. Along with her beauty, Khema possessed sharp intelligence and literary knowledge. But instead of using her intellect wisely, she used it to magnify her pride. In the royal court, people often whispered, "No one can rival the beauty of Khema." Such words of praise only deepened her vanity. As she grew up, Khema became one of King Bimbisara's most beloved queens. She adored decorating her chambers with mirrors so that her reflection followed her every step. Even when she went for a walk, her attendants would carry mirrors behind her, ensuring she never missed a chance to admire her own face. To Khema, youth and beauty were everything. She believed they were everlasting, her weapon to secure power and superiority. But King Bimbisara, though affectionate toward his queen, was also a devout supporter of the Buddha. He frequently visited the Blessed One, and often invited him to the palace to teach. Each time this happened, Khema kept her distance. In her heart, she detested hearing about impermanence, for phrases like "beauty fades" wounded her pride. Knowing this, the king devised another way. One day, he suggested that Khema visit the royal garden. From a woman who reveled in vanity, Khema donned the simple saffron robe and joined the community of nuns, beginning a new journey. Her path of practice was not without struggle. Memories of her luxurious life, the pride in her beauty, still resurfaced to test her mind. But with diligence, she gradually perceived the nature of those illusions. She meditated, discerning the arising and passing of each breath, each sensation. Eventually, Khema realized the truth, freed her mind from bondage, and attained arahantship. From then on, these words affirmed her achievement and stood as testimony that wisdom is not determined by gender or status, but by diligence and right understanding. 3. Patacara lost her entire family but found peace in the Dharma. In the history of Buddhism, few stories are as heartbreaking and deeply moving as the story of Patacara, a woman who endured the most unimaginable losses of human life, only to discover, from the depths of her suffering, the light of liberation in the Buddha's teaching. Her story is not merely a personal tragedy, but also a living testimony to the fragility of existence and the miraculous healing power of the Dharma. Leaving behind her gilded life to begin a modest existence in a rural village. The early years of their life together were filled with hardship. From a pampered young lady who had never lifted her hand to labor, Patacara now had to cook, wash, carry water, and tend to the fields. And yet, she bore it all willingly. She set out on the journey back home. Her husband, realizing she had left, hurried after her. On the way, her labor began. Unable to reach her parents' house in time, she gave birth on the roadside. Under the open sky, her husband did his best to help, gathering sticks and leaves to provide shelter. A child was born in the wilderness, fragile, yet luminous with the promise of new life. Exhausted, yet filled with maternal bliss, Patacara felt her heart expand as she cradled both her children. The small family continued their journey, but fate turned cruel once more. Left to find branches and leaves for shelter. But in the shadows, a venomous snake struck him down. By morning, Patacara found his lifeless body. Her wails of grief pierced the stormy sky. But it was only the beginning of her unimaginable ordeal. Clutching her 2 children, she pressed on toward Savatthi, desperate for her parents' comfort. But as she neared the city, another devastating news reached her. The storm had collapsed her family home during the night, killing her parents and siblings. But fate still had more cruelty in store. When she reached a swollen river, she placed her elder child on the near bank, carrying the younger one across in her arms. As she set the infant down and turned back, a hawk swooped down and snatched the baby away into the sky. Screaming in terror, Patacara tried to chase it, but it vanished into the distance. In that brief moment, her elder child, thinking he had been abandoned, stepped into the river and was swept away by the rushing waters. In a single day, Patacara lost her husband, her parents, her siblings, and both her children. Everything she loved, everything that tethered her to life, was gone. Her grief was too vast for her mind to contain. Her reason broke, and she wandered half-mad. Her clothes in tatters, crying and raving through the streets. People mocked her, avoided her, or cast her aside as if she were a lunatic. One day, her wandering steps brought her to where the Buddha was teaching among a great assembly. People recoiled at her disheveled appearance, wishing to drive her away. But the Buddha stopped them. His gaze of infinite compassion fell upon her, and in that instant, her frenzied heart began to settle. Patacara fell at the Buddha's feet, pouring out her sorrow, recounting every tragedy that had befallen her. The Buddha listened, then spoke with gentle firmness. Patacara, do not grieve endlessly. The tears you have shed throughout the cycle of countless lives, for the loss of fathers, mothers, husbands, and children, are greater than all the waters of the 4 oceans combined. In every lifetime, you have suffered this same sorrow. Birth and death are without end, and suffering too is without end. Only by seeing clearly the impermanence of all things, by letting go of attachment, can true peace be found. These words struck her like a lightning bolt of truth. Through her tears, Patacara suddenly saw reality unveiled. No one could escape death. No one could cling to family forever. Life, like water in a stream, flows away and cannot be held. The only refuge was the path of awakening the Buddha revealed. Patacara asked to join the community of nuns. With relentless effort, She practiced meditation and reflection on impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Each memory of her lost family no longer crushed her, but became fuel for her resolve to seek liberation. From her unimaginable sorrow, she forged an unwavering determination. In time, Patacara attained arahantship, becoming one of the foremost nuns in the Sangha. The Buddha declared her the greatest in mastery of the Vinaya among the nuns, for she not only observed the discipline with great purity, but also guided and taught many others with wisdom and compassion. Her story spread far and wide. People wept upon hearing it, yet also found faith and hope in the Dharma. Patacara's life stood as proof that even in the darkest depths of grief, peace could be found if one turned to the Buddha's path. To this day, when people recall Patacara, they remember not only her tragic losses, but also her extraordinary rebirth in spirit, a woman who, from utter devastation, rose to the heights of liberation, and planting seeds of merit for countless generations to come. Visakha was born into a prosperous merchant family in the city of Badia. From childhood, she lived in luxury and was deeply cherished by her parents. Yet unlike many children of her class, Visakha displayed early on both intelligence and compassion. She was not only strikingly beautiful but also kind-hearted, always eager to help others, from household servants of lesser fortune to beggars wandering in the marketplace. When Visakha came of age, her family organized a grand ceremony to present her to society. On that day, something remarkable happened. She encountered the Buddha for the very first time. The serene gaze and compassionate voice of the Blessed One left a profound mark on her heart. From that moment forward, Visakha vowed that wherever her life might take her, she would become a devoted lay follower, supporting the Dharma and the Sangha with unwavering faith. Later, Visakha was married into a wealthy merchant family in the great city of Savatthi, ruled by King Pasenadi and also one of the major centers of Buddhism at the time. It was there that she found the opportunity to fulfill her youthful vow, planting wholesome seeds in their everyday lives. What inspired admiration was not merely the scale of her generosity, but the purity of her intention. Visakha never gave to show off her wealth. Wealth cannot follow us after death. Only the merit of wholesome deeds can serve as our eternal companion. Visakha was also remarkable in her ability to balance worldly and spiritual life. She was a devoted wife and mother, fulfilling her family responsibilities with care, while still making time for spiritual practice, listening to the Dharma, and leading charitable works. She taught her children and grandchildren to live righteously, to honor the Triple Gem, and to share their resources with those in need. Through her example, her entire household became a strong pillar of support for the Dharma. Among her many contributions, one of the most significant was the construction of the Pabarama Monastery, offered to the Buddha and his disciples. This monastery was not merely a physical structure, but a timeless symbol of Visakha's selfless devotion and enduring support for the Buddha's mission. On several occasions, the Buddha personally gave teachings to Visakha, guiding her on how a laywoman could live with both worldly responsibilities and spiritual growth. He praised her as an exemplary lay follower who harmonized wisdom and compassion, skillfully using her wealth to benefit others and to safeguard the Dharma. What makes her story extraordinary is not just her immense wealth or her capacity to give, but her unwavering dedication across her entire lifetime. Despite living amidst luxury, she never forgot that worldly prosperity is impermanent. Thus, she continually transformed her material resources into spiritual merit, planting seeds of goodness for herself and countless others. The people of Savatthi revered her not just as a wealthy woman, but as a beacon of wisdom and compassion. Her life offers a profound lesson. Wealth need not be an obstacle to the spiritual path. On the contrary, when guided by compassion and wisdom, wealth becomes a powerful means to serve the Dharma and to uplift countless lives. Today, when we remember Visakha, one can plant the seeds of liberation and dedicate one's life to a higher vision beyond fleeting worldly pleasures. Visakha remains a living testament that one need not abandon everything to find awakening. With a heart of compassion and wisdom, even within family life, a woman can shine as a guiding light for her community, ensuring that the Dharma continues to flourish and nourish generations to come. Part 7. Other disciples. In the history of Buddhism. Alongside the great disciples well known to many, such as Sariputta, Moggallana, Ananda, and Mahakasyapa, there were also other disciples of the Buddha whose virtues and accomplishments were equally extraordinary. Each of them left behind a unique legacy, contributing to the brilliance of the Dharma. They were not merely followers who served the Buddha, but living examples for generations to come, embodying faith, wisdom, and liberation. Their stories are like stars in the night sky, each radiating its own light, together forming the vast expanse of Buddhist teaching. Among them, Ananda, honored as the disciple with the supreme divine eye, stands out as a figure of remarkable significance. 7. 1. Ananda, the disciple who saw through the entire universe. In the memory of many Buddhists, Ananda is remembered as a symbol of wisdom and tireless diligence. He was born into the royal Sakya clan, a cousin of the Buddha himself. From childhood, Ananda lived in luxury, enjoying every privilege of noble birth. Yet, palace life could not fill the yearning within his soul, the longing for a deeper meaning in existence. When the Buddha returned to Kapilavatthu after attaining enlightenment, Ananda and many other Sakyan youths listened to his first teachings. From that moment, a new door opened in Ananda's mind. The radiance of the Buddha's wisdom awakened within him a burning aspiration to pursue the spiritual path. Despite the allure of worldly pleasures, Ananda, along with Ananda, Devdatta, Badya, Ananda lost his physical eyesight. For most, this would have been a tragic misfortune, but for him, it was the gateway to a higher vision. Deprived of ordinary sight, Ananda developed the divine eye, the clairvoyant vision of wisdom that could penetrate the realms of existence. From then on, he was honored as the Buddha's disciple foremost in divine vision. Through this divine eye, Ananda could perceive the workings of countless worlds and the endless cycle of rebirths. He saw clearly how beings, according to their deeds, rose to heavens or fell into realms of suffering. Witnessing this endless cycle deepened both his compassion and his determination to transcend samsara, while also guiding others toward liberation. On one occasion, while meditating with fellow monks in the forest, Ananda perceived through his divine eye the unwholesome thoughts lingering in some of their minds. Rather than rebuke or condemn them, he spoke with gentle compassion, encouraging them to return to mindfulness and discipline. His insight saved many of his brothers from straying off the path and serving the Sangha with a spirit of love and care. He was regarded as an elder brother figure, guiding and protecting the younger monks with kindness. In the scriptures, there is an account of the Buddha once asking, "Who among you maintains a mind of unshakable joy, free from sorrow?" The monks all answered, "It is Ananda." Indeed, although he had lost his worldly eyesight, he lived ever in the boundless radiance of wisdom and the bliss of meditation. Ananda was also among the disciples who attained arahantship while still young. Having extinguished all defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion, he achieved complete liberation. His life became a shining testament to the power of diligence and unwavering faith. Beyond his spiritual attainment, Ananda played another pivotal role. He was present at the Buddha's final moments in Kusinara. With his divine eye, he perceived the vast gathering of celestial beings who had come to pay homage. Weeping as the Buddha entered parinirvana. Through Ananda's vision, posterity gained a sacred and profound account of the Blessed One's passing into final peace. The life of Ananda teaches us a profound lesson. What seems like loss may not be misfortune if transformed with wisdom. The closing of worldly eyes can open the boundless vision of insight. From a prince of privilege, he became a saint of humility. From blindness, he gained the vision of universes. Today, whenever we recall Ananda, that the path to liberation is open to all, regardless of social class, wealth, or status. Upali was born into a humble family that survived by cutting hair. At that time, barbers were considered socially inferior because their work involved direct contact with people's heads, hair, and beards, matters the caste system regarded as impure. From a young age, Upali endured the disdainful looks of others, yet he remained honest, diligent, and gentle in spirit. He often served the princes of the Sakya clan, including Ananda, Baudiya, and Devdutta. When Prince Siddhartha, after attaining enlightenment, returned to Kapilavatthu, many young Sakya princes resolved to renounce worldly life and join him. They invited their barber, Upali, to accompany them, for he had always been loyal and close to them. At first, Upali was deeply hesitant. How could a lowly barber walk alongside noble princes on the path of renunciation? Yet the princes encouraged him and even gave him their abandoned ornaments and fine clothes. At that moment, Upali faced a profound choice. He could either keep the precious wealth and live comfortably, or let it all go and walk the path of renunciation. After a moment of reflection, he realized that clinging to material possessions would only bind him further, while following the Buddha offered the chance for true freedom. With clarity of heart, Upali cast aside the wealth and chose the simple robe of a monk, walking humbly with the princes to meet the Buddha. The Buddha immediately perceived Upali's sincerity. He also foresaw a subtle danger. If the princes were ordained before Upali, the hierarchy of caste and nobility would seep into the Sangha. So he deliberately ordained Upali first. In that instant, the balance shifted. The princes, once of noble birth, now bowed to their former barber as their elder brother in the monastic order. It was a powerful and unprecedented declaration of equality. Within the Sangha, caste was meaningless. Only virtue and wisdom mattered. Once ordained, Upali devoted himself wholeheartedly to the discipline, Vinaya. He often reflected, "Discipline is the foundation of liberation. Without it, meditation and wisdom are like illusions." With this understanding, he lived with meticulous care, guarding his actions and words with mindfulness. Over time, his mastery of the Vinaya grew so profound that even great disciples like Sariputta and Moggallana turned to him for guidance on difficult matters of discipline. The Buddha himself once declared to the monks, "If you have doubts concerning the rules of discipline, ask Upali." Such recognition placed Upali at the heart of the Sangha's integrity. Yet, despite his stature, Upali remained deeply humble. He never looked down on anyone. His gentle demeanor and self-effacing attitude were shaped by the memory of his own humble origins. He knew well that he owed everything to the Dharma. This humility made him widely respected and beloved within the community. After the Buddha's passing, at the first council in Rajagaha, Upali's role became crucial. With Sariputta and Moggallana already gone, it was Upali who recited the entire Vinaya before the assembly. His flawless memory and unwavering precision preserved the discipline intact for generations to come. Thanks to him, the Sangha continued to have a clear foundation of harmony and purity. Upali stands as a mountain of steadiness in the history of Buddhism. Without guardians like him, the Sangha might have fractured under the weight of human weakness. Discipline was the pillar that held the community upright, and Upali was its custodian. His life carries timeless lessons. First, it reminds us that the Dharma belongs to everyone. In a world of temptations and distractions, discipline is what shields the mind and nurtures peace. While other disciples shone through wisdom, eloquence, or spiritual powers, Upali's greatness was quiet, steady, and foundational. His observance of discipline was not rigid dogma, but a living stream of clarity and mindfulness. Even today, his story reverberates with meaning. It calls us to remember that dignity does not come from birth or status, but from integrity of character. Upali, once a humble barber, became the guardian of discipline, a beacon of equality and transformation, showing that the Dharma can uplift even the most overlooked among us. 7. 3. Rahula, the novice monk and the lesson of truth from the Buddha. Rahula is one of the most remarkable figures in the early history of Buddhism. Rahula was born in Kapilavatthu, within the luxuries of the Sakya royal palace. His birth coincided with the moment when Prince Siddhartha chose to leave behind the palace in search of liberation for all beings. Thus, Rahula grew up in the love and care of his mother, Princess Yasodhara, and under the protection of the royal clan, but without the presence of his father. Approached the Buddha with childlike innocence. Guided by his mother, Rahula respectfully said, "Father, please give me my inheritance." In liberation, the Buddha also guided Rahula in meditation practice. He taught him to be mindful of the body, to observe the breath, and most importantly, to contemplate non-self, to see that what we call I is merely a collection of body and mind, without permanence. The Buddha emphasized this lesson because he knew that Rahula, being his son, might cling to identity or privilege. By instilling the teaching of non-self, the Buddha ensured Rahula would walk the path with humility and clarity. Over time, Rahula grew into a model novice monk. His transformation was not due merely to innate potential, but also to the patient and loving training he received from the Buddha. According to the scriptures, Rahula later attained arahantship, full liberation. He became an exemplar for all young practitioners, showing that age or background are no obstacles on the path to enlightenment. From being born in luxury, Rahula achieved sainthood by rooting himself in honesty and perseverance. Rahula's story carries enduring lessons for humanity. First, it demonstrates that even the Buddha's own son had no special privileges. Rahula had to go through training, make mistakes, correct them, and grow. Enlightenment is never inherited. Truth is the core of character, the foundation of wisdom, and the bridge that connects human beings to each other and to liberation. Third, for Kapantaka, from the slow-witted monk to an enlightened saint through a simple cloth. In the long history of Buddhism, there are figures remembered not because of their brilliance from the very beginning, nor because of extraordinary talents that impressed everyone, but precisely because they were underestimated, even ridiculed, and later shown unexpectedly on the path to awakening. Kapantaka is one of those figures. His story reveals the power of patience, of believing in oneself, and above all, the compassionate and wise guidance of the Buddha. Kapantaka was the younger brother of the great disciple Mahakasyapa. Both brothers renounced the world and chose the path of liberation. The elder brother was sharp, quick in reasoning, and skillful in reciting scriptures. The younger, however, was the complete opposite. He could not remember even a single short verse, thinking he lacked the capacity for the path. Some texts even recount that Mahakasyapa, with a heavy heart, told him, "You are incapable. Better to return." These words pierced Kapantaka's heart. He felt utterly worthless, abandoned even by his own kin. In despair, Kapantaka approached the Buddha. With his compassionate gaze, the Blessed One neither reproached him nor belittled his lack of memory. Instead, the Buddha gave him a practice tailored to his capacity. The Buddha handed him a clean white cloth and instructed. As he rubbed the cloth, he should repeat, "Remove the stain, remove the stain." At first, Kapantaka did not understand why he was given such a simple task, far from the lofty recitations and teachings entrusted to others. Yet, with absolute trust, he practiced as instructed. Each day, he took the cloth, rubbed it back and forth, whispering, "Remove the stain, remove the stain." Gradually, something remarkable occurred. Though the cloth began clean, after being rubbed for a while, it turned soiled, accumulating dust and grime. Kapantaka suddenly realized, if even a clean cloth could become dirty, how much more so the human mind. The mind, when left untrained, easily becomes clouded by greed, anger, and delusion. Just like the cloth, pure at first, but inevitably stained when exposed to the world. Through persistence and devotion, his contemplation deepened. As his hands wiped the cloth, his mind seemed to wipe itself. Feelings of inferiority, the sting of others' ridicule, and the despair of failure, all began to dissolve. In their place arose clarity, a direct insight into impermanence, into the defilements of the mind, and the path of purification. One morning, as sunlight streamed into the monastery, Kapantaka was absorbed in rubbing the cloth when suddenly his mind broke open. He realized the truth of no self and impermanence. In that very moment, he attained the state of arhat. These were moments when the Sangha faced immense challenges. How to preserve the Buddha's teachings after his parinirvana, how to prevent the Dharma from being lost, scattered, or distorted over time. These historical turning points are not just tales of a monastic community from over 2,000 years ago, but evidence of the survival of wisdom and faith. Listening directly to every teaching had come to an end. The Buddha was no longer physically present to guide or correct each step of the disciples. Many monks wept, some fell into confusion. Ananda had not yet attained arahantship at the time of the Buddha's parinirvana. According to council rules, only fully liberated beings could participate. This meant that Ananda, the one most intimately connected to the Buddha, was initially barred from this historic gathering. The night before the council, Ananda was in profound distress. He blamed himself for not having achieved liberation despite so many years following the Buddha. He sat in meditation, determined to strive without pause. Legend tells that just before dawn, in a moment of complete surrender, Ananda's mind broke free from all attachments. In that instant, he attained arahantship. The next morning, Ananda entered the council as a liberated disciple. Accepted among the 500 arahants, he became the very soul of the council, opening with the familiar phrase, "Thus have I heard, eva me suttam." These words became the standard introduction for the entire Sutta collection, affirming that all was faithfully transmitted from Ananda, the one who had heard the Buddha directly. During the council, Mahakasyapa presided, and Ananda was asked to recite each teaching. When asked, where was the Buddha? When? To whom did he speak? Ananda responded clearly, I heard it like this. Known for his mastery of the Vinaya, monastic code, was invited to recite and verify the Vinaya, forming the complete monastic discipline. Together, the council established the foundation for both the Sutta and Vinaya, the two pillars of early Buddhism. This event was not only religiously significant, but also a remarkable feat of collective memory, faith, and shared responsibility. Even a small lapse in transmission could have distorted the Buddha's teachings over the centuries. Yet, through the dedication and wisdom of the disciples, particularly the moving interaction between Ananda and Mahakasyapa, what we read today in the canon remains faithful to the original teachings. The story of the first council leaves profound reflections for posterity. In any community, after a leader departs, the greatest challenge is maintaining spirit and unity. Without individuals of courage willing to take responsibility, ideals can easily fragment. Thanks to Mahakasyapa's determination and Ananda's perseverance, Buddhism survived this fragile moment. Another subtle lesson emerges. Sometimes, one's weaknesses or exclusion can become the very motivation that propels one forward. Had Ananda not been initially barred for not yet attaining arahantship, he might not have exerted himself so intensely that night, and he would not have become an arahant just before this historic council. From the edge of exclusion, Ananda stepped into the center, becoming the bridge between the Buddha and all future generations. The image of the council in the Saptaparni cave, with 500 arahants sitting in silence, chanting each teaching, remains today a symbol of collective wisdom, unity, and fidelity to truth. It reminds us that history is not only written by victories in the world, but also by moments when humans come together to preserve the light of reality. 8.2 Story. The Sangha spreads across ancient India. After the Buddha entered parinirvana, no longer physically present among his disciples, a great challenge arose. How could his teachings avoid fading? And how could the light of his wisdom reach all corners of ancient India? At this pivotal moment, the Sangha, originally a small group of those who closely followed the Buddha, began a journey of expansion, spreading far beyond the major cities. Continued to travel across northern India, recalling and teaching what the Buddha had imparted, even to those hearing the path to liberation for the first time. Sariputta, the foremost in wisdom, was often mentioned in villages as a brilliant teacher, explaining profound teachings in ways that astonished even non-Buddhist scholars. Moggallana, with his supernatural abilities, went to dangerous or distant regions, using his powers to protect and assist other disciples, ensuring their peace of mind while teaching and spreading the Dharma. The Sangha expanded not only geographically, but also in terms of quality and practice. Monasteries, meditation centers, and places of spiritual retreat were established everywhere. Lay communities also became actively involved, offering robes, food, and material support, creating a sustainable system for the Sangha's growth. During this expansion, the Sangha faced many difficulties. Some remote areas were full of danger, and some communities were closed off or skeptical of new teachings. Yet, through dedication, wisdom, and adaptive methods of teaching, the disciples gradually persuaded, guided, and inspired people. Not everyone accepted the teachings immediately, There were many instances of rejection, misunderstanding, or failure. But through patience and compassion, the disciples persisted, each step serving as a living testimony to the path of enlightenment taught by the Buddha. The image of the Sangha spreading across ancient India is not just a story of geographic or numerical expansion. It is a testament to the power of unity, faith in the ideal of awakening, and the human capacity guided by true wisdom and compassion. Every step they took recorded a story, a vivid lesson in loyalty, perseverance, and devotion, laying the foundation for Buddhism to flourish in the centuries that followed. Through this story, we see that the light of the Dharma never extinguishes when enlightened individuals are willing to act as bridges between wisdom and the world, between the past and the present, and between the Buddha and all beings yearning for liberation. It proves that the spread of truth relies not on power or authority, but on virtue, wisdom, and the devoted hearts of those who truly understand the value of awakening. 8.3 Story. Seeds from the Disciples. Buddhism beyond national borders. From the very first years after the Buddha's parinirvana, the seeds of enlightenment he planted in the hearts of his disciples began to spread beyond the borders of the Magadha kingdom and neighboring regions. Without the Buddha's direct presence, faith and wisdom had to be transmitted through the disciples' own efforts, perseverance, and devotion. These seeds, carefully nurtured by enlightened followers such as Ananda, Mahakasyapa, Sariputta, and devoted female disciples, became a source of inspiration for generations, allowing Buddhism not only to survive, but also to flourish across distant lands. Ananda, moving even skeptical scholars of other traditions, leaving those unfamiliar with the Buddha amazed by the subtlety and logic of his teachings. Sariputta not only taught, but also created a structured framework for thought, helping learners practice on their own and find the path to enlightenment. Mahakasyapa, symbolizing asceticism and discipline, played a crucial role in forming meditation communities in various regions. The robe and bowl he inherited from the Buddha were not just symbols of spiritual authority, but also tools for preserving the integrity of the teachings during their dissemination. It was not only the monks who contributed, but lay supporters like Visakha and female disciples like Khema and Patacara played vital roles in spreading Buddhism. They used their social standing, skills, and compassion to establish practice centers, provide robes, food, and other necessities, creating stable communities that allowed Buddhism to extend further. We see that all great historical changes begin with small seeds sown by ordinary people with extraordinary devotion. These seeds, when nurtured with virtue, wisdom, and compassion, grow, spread, and bring the light of enlightenment everywhere, surpassing all borders and eras, illuminating the hearts of all who yearn to find the path to liberation. Part 9. The legacy passed to future generations. When the light of the Dharma shines, it does not only illuminate the present, but also flows gently into the future through the actions and teachings of the Buddha's disciples. In this section, we will explore how wisdom and loyalty intertwine, how steadfast examples preserve the essence of the Dharma, and how these gentle yet profound stories allow that light to continue guiding future generations on the path of awakening. 9.1 When wisdom meets loyalty, Sariputta and Ananda. From the very beginning, Sariputta and Ananda became emblematic of the harmony between profound wisdom and unwavering loyalty. Sariputta, with his exceptional insight, could analyze the Buddha's teachings in depth, uncovering the subtle principles of the Dharma and guiding newcomers toward understanding the path of liberation. Meanwhile, Ananda, with his extraordinary memory and absolute devotion, became the vital bridge between the Buddha and all disciples, ensuring that the Buddha's words would never be lost. Though different in abilities, the two complemented each other perfectly, forming a strong foundation for the preservation and dissemination of the teachings in the years to come. During their years alongside the Buddha, Ananda witnessed Sariputta's profound sermons firsthand, learning how he explained, interpreted, and guided other disciples. Each time Sariputta taught, Ananda not only memorized every word but also absorbed the spirit and deeper meaning behind the teachings. This loyalty allowed Ananda to fully comprehend every nuance of the Dharma so that when the Buddha was no longer present, He could ensure the teachings were passed on completely and accurately to future generations. One memorable story is when Sariputta and Ananda taught new disciples from various lands who had never encountered the Dharma before. Sariputta used his analytical wisdom to explain profound principles, while Ananda, with his gentle yet steady voice, repeated every detail and recounted the stories the Buddha had told. This collaboration not only helped the students understand the teachings, but also allowed them to feel the warmth, closeness, and loyalty of their guides. On their journeys to spread the Buddha's teachings, Sariputta often faced challenging questions from scholars and wise men of other traditions. His wisdom provided clear answers and deep discussions, allowing listeners to contemplate and recognize the truth. Ananda accompanied him, always ready to recall the Buddha's words, record every detail, and help new followers understand the context of each teaching. The combination of wisdom and loyalty ensured that disciples not only learned the Dharma, but also experienced the ethical spirit, devotion, and compassion embodied in every lesson. Another example is when Sariputta and Ananda participated in organizing the first Buddhist council. Sariputta, with his ability to analyze and organize, systematically classified the Buddha's teachings into clear, understandable sections. Ananda, with his perfect memory, recorded every detail, ensuring that not a single word was lost. Their cooperation created a solid foundation for these precious teachings to be preserved and transmitted to thousands and millions of disciples in the future. Every step they took demonstrated that wisdom paired with loyalty creates extraordinary power, keeping the light of the Dharma shining eternally. In daily life, Sariputta and Ananda also showed a special bond. Sariputta devoted himself to study and meditation, exploring the mind's nature, while Ananda stayed close, attending to small yet essential needs, from meals to recording events and the Buddhist teachings. Their harmonious collaboration enabled the Sangha to function smoothly, creating an environment conducive to learning and practicing the Dharma. Even after the Buddha's parinirvana, their partnership continued to have a profound impact. When disciples faced difficulties or confusion, they turned to Sariputta for proper understanding of the teachings and to Ananda to be reminded of the Buddha's exact words. Their presence stood as living proof that wisdom and loyalty must go hand in hand, supporting one another to preserve and pass down the essence of the Dharma. With contrasting yet complementary qualities, demonstrated that the preservation of spiritual heritage depends not only on knowledge but also on devotion, loyalty, and deep compassion, allowing the light of the Buddha's teachings to shine for generations to come. 9.2 Asceticism and Compassion, Mahakasyapa, and the Buddha. In the gentle dawn of a summer day in northern India, the stillness of the surroundings seemed to mirror Mahakasyapa's inner serenity, a soul honed over years of ascetic practice, meditation, and unwavering compassion. Mahakasyapa was born into a noble family, enjoying all comforts and luxuries, yet upon encountering the Buddha, he chose to renounce it all and dedicate himself to the austere life. This decision was not impulsive, but the culmination of deep insight into impermanence, suffering, and the transient nature of worldly things. His story is not merely about personal asceticism, but serves as a lesson on how wisdom and compassion can intertwine to create a life of awakening. That day, Mahakasyapa approached the Buddha to discuss the practice of compassion amidst the trials of ascetic life. The Buddha gazed at him with a calm yet powerful look, eyes capable of penetrating the depths of the soul. Mahakasyapa bowed, sighing as he shared his struggles in maintaining compassion in the face of suffering, witnessing illness, loss, or people immersed in hatred and delusion. The Buddha remained silent for a moment. The water flows without resentment, without grasping, yet nurtures all life. Let your compassion flow like this water, without striving, without judgment, yet reaching everywhere. In the following years, Mahakasyapa exemplified harmony between ascetic discipline and compassion. He lived in simple hermitages, ate modestly, and slept on bamboo mats. Inexperienced monks frightened by austerity, he did not scold but gently guided them step by step, like cool drops of water cleansing the troubled mind. One autumn evening, as the last sunlight turned the calm lake golden, Mahakasyapa sat with the Buddha, listening to the rustling leaves. The Buddha asked about the difficulties Mahakasyapa faced in ascetic life. But through a combination of a calm mind, clear wisdom, and boundless compassion, his story resonates through the centuries, reminding us that no matter the circumstances, saw through the essence of human life and guided others into the core of the teachings. Moggallana, foremost in supernatural powers, reminded everyone of the value of perseverance and disciplined practice. Female disciples such as Mahakasyapa, Khema, Patacara, and Visakha each brought their own sources of inspiration. Courage, supreme wisdom, patience, and boundless compassion. This diversity was not only in character or ability, but also in the way each person conveyed the Dharma to the world. Some taught gently. Others applied strict discipline, while others healed the deepest wounds of the human heart with compassion. The Buddha emphasized that the path to enlightenment is not a single road, but many. And each disciple is a light illuminating part of reality, enriching the full picture of the Dharma. During the final gatherings, and together they created a great river of Dharma that continued to flow, nourishing the hearts of those seeking awakening. This story reminds us that in every community, group, family, waiting for his last words, as if awaiting a precious gem to fall into their hands. In this section, we delve into the story of the Buddha imparting his final teachings, containing the essence of enlightenment, compassion, and timeless messages for all who seek the path of liberation. 10.1 Story. The Buddha and his final instructions to the disciples. The morning at Kushinagar carried a serene and solemn atmosphere. The Buddha's disciples had gathered from far and wide, their hearts filled with reverence, yet heavy with deep sorrow. Each gentle step on the forest floor, each cool breeze through the trees, seemed to carry invisible messages, reminding everyone that an era was coming to an end, but the light of wisdom and compassion would continue to shine. The Buddha, dressed in simple yellow robes, radiated calm and serenity as he looked at each disciple with eyes full of love. He knew this moment was not just the end of his physical life, but the most important time to pass on the essence of his teachings, like an underground stream flowing through time, nourishing the hearts of all who would follow the path of awakening. First, the Buddha emphasized the importance of practicing mindfulness and compassion. He reminded the disciples that even though he would no longer be physically present, the teachings live in every righteous action and thought. Be your own lamp, be your own refuge. Do not seek it elsewhere, he stressed, his voice deep and resonant, echoing through the still space. Ananda, the living memory of all the teachings, sat quietly, his eyes glistening with tears, deeply feeling the power of this advice. Every word seemed to penetrate the heart of each disciple, engraving an immutable truth. Enlightenment is not an external possession, but an inner transformation of body, speech, and mind. In the quiet afternoon, the Buddha continued to guide his disciples on maintaining unity within the Sangha. He taught that despite differences in personality, abilities, and experiences, each individual is an essential link in the living chain of the Dharma. Sariputta and Moggallana, Ananda, Mahakasyapa, and female disciples like Mahakasyapa, Khema, Patacara, and Visakha were reminded to use their unique strengths to support one another, nurturing the flame of wisdom and compassion together so that the Dharma would never fade. This teaching was not only a strategy for sustaining the Sangha, but also a profound message about the importance of community, gratitude, and selfless service. In his final hours, the Buddha also spoke about facing birth, aging, sickness, and death. He advised the disciples to confront reality without fear, not from fear but from deep awareness of the value of each moment and the latent power of the human mind when walking the path of truth. Throughout the afternoon, the Buddha stressed that learning the Dharma is not merely through words, but must be experienced through practice and meditation. He recounted stories of disciples, of challenges. Every gust of wind, bird call, and falling leaf harmonized with his teachings, creating a spiritual symphony, reminding all that enlightenment is not distant. It is present in every breath and every authentic action. As the evening shadows lengthened, the Buddha concluded his teaching with a final message. Our minds can easily recognize that the path to enlightenment once walked by the Buddha and his disciples is not merely a distant historical tale. On the contrary, it remains alive in our daily lives. A diligent office worker might apply Sariputta's wisdom to understand colleagues' needs while maintaining inner peace under pressure. A mother, like Mahapajapati Gautami or Visakha. It is the understanding that enlightenment is not an external destination but a state of mind. The ability to recognize and free oneself from ignorance, anger, and desire in everyday life, where every challenge and relationship becomes an opportunity for growth. Thus, each of us can step onto the path of enlightenment, gradually, breath by breath, through small actions. When we face difficulties yet maintain compassion, when we recognize our mistakes without resentment but with the desire to learn. This serves as a reminder that the path to enlightenment is not confined to anyone or limited to the past or ancient stories. It invites each of us today, live mindfully, act with compassion, and learn from every experience to cultivate wisdom. Like Ananda, Sariputta, Mahakasyapa, and female disciples such as Khema, Patacara, and Visakha, we too can become modern disciples, bringing the light of the Dharma into our lives and passing that essence to future generations. The journey toward awakening does not require perfection, but calls for sincerity, patience, and to fully live the message left by the Buddha, to live mindfully, to love, and to shine from within. 10. 3. Loyalty and enlightenment as the torch illuminating humanity. Looking back at the long journey of the Buddha and his disciples, from the first steps of Ananda, Sariputta, and Mahakasyapa to the resilient female disciples like Khema, Patacara, and Visakha, we see a red thread running through it all: loyalty to the truth and dedication to enlightenment. These qualities are not only symbolic of a bygone era, but also serve as a guiding torch for humanity, leading individuals through life's storms, crossroads, and even the seemingly small moments of daily life. The loyalty displayed by Ananda, always by the Buddha's side, remembering every teaching, every act of compassion, is not merely fidelity to a teacher, but faithfulness to truth, enlightenment, and the path of liberation. When Sariputta devoted his wisdom to each teaching and decision, he taught us that loyalty to the truth means nurturing insight and clarity in every thought and action. Looking at Mahakasyapa and the other disciples, Patacara and Visakha exemplify that loyalty and enlightenment know no gender, status, or origin. They abandoned material attachments and personal suffering to seek the truth. They inspire us that enlightenment is a torch that not only lights one's own path, but also guides others. Each story and action of theirs is like a small candle illuminating the way for those still searching for peace, virtue, and wisdom. This message resonates in modern life as well. Each of us, amid the rush of daily life, work, family, and society, can become disciples today. We need not leave the world or forsake everything: our families, our communities, and the world around us. Like the Buddha's disciples, we can learn perseverance through challenges, patience amid hardship, and unconditional love. Loyalty and enlightenment are the twin sails guiding us through life's storms, and the torch humanity always needs to stay on course. This journey does not end here. Each of us can walk the path of awakening, becoming a modern disciple, continuing the legacy, and passing the light to future generations. Begin today, with yourself. Ignite loyalty, ignite wisdom. Part 6. The Women Disciples. In the history of Buddhism, the emergence of female disciples was not only a spiritual turning point, but also a revolutionary milestone for ancient Indian society. At a time when women were considered inferior, confined within the family sphere, the idea of a woman renouncing worldly life, seeking liberation, and attaining enlightenment seemed almost impossible. Yet, the very first women broke through that wall of prejudice, opening a path for countless generations of women to follow the light of liberation. They were not just students, but living witnesses to the power of compassion, wisdom, and perseverance. 6.1 Mahapajapati Gautami, the first woman who asked to ordain. Mahapajapati Gautami, the Buddha's aunt and foster mother, was one of the most remarkable figures in the entire history of Buddhism. She was not only bound to the Buddha by blood, but she was also the first woman in recorded history to stand before the male-dominated spiritual tradition and ask for the right to renounce worldly life. It was full of tenderness, devotion, and sacrifice. She watched Siddhartha grow, from a curious child within the palace walls to a young man troubled by the suffering of life, to don the robe of renunciation and to follow the path of liberation, just as the men do. That request struck like thunder against the sky of Indian tradition. In those times, the idea of a woman renouncing the world was unheard of. Women were considered bound to family and domestic roles. They were born, married, and died within the household. With calm clarity, he affirmed, Ananda, women are indeed fully capable of attaining arahantship, just as men are. There is no difference in the capacity for enlightenment. That statement opened the way.